Good morning. I can imagine that there are few people joining today's summit who are not exhausted. Not like truly worn out, but truly exhausted. The start of a new school year is a time to normally feel refreshed, recharged, ready to begin anew. And yet I imagine that many of you may not have felt like you even had much of a summer. I'd like to talk today about how it is that you can keep going amidst a number of challenging events and yet maybe feel stronger than you ever have before. Resiliency is a fascinating thing, and it's definitely present among school teachers and school communities. I have personally witnessed this with my own eyeballs more times than I can count, and have all the respect in the world for the work that you do. We've been living life in a pandemic for a really long time, and I know I don't need to tell you that. You've been living it and feeling it. I've heard many teachers talk about their experiences of returning to school this year, thinking that nothing could be harder than it was last year. And in fact, finding that this year has all new challenges of new little lives who are setting foot on a school campus for the first time, of trying to keep excited children at a distance from each other, reminding them to wear masks. To hear the challenges of this year, knowing how incredibly challenging they were last year with online learning and Zoom school, says a lot. Last year, you were challenged with balancing your personal lives with the impact of COVID, sharing without choice the transparency of your lives in the classroom, bringing the classroom into the homes of others to speak, and going into their personal lives, all kinds of challenges. I'd also like to share with you, before I talk a little more about resiliency, I'd like to talk and share an update about our community mental health surveys, which have gone out through the month of September to assess the impact of COVID throughout our community. The surveys close the end of September. The data is now being analyzed. And once we get all of the data, that's what we'll be using to look at what services we currently have in our community and what more we need to individualize based on the unique needs of our community. And then we will hopefully be able to put some of those services in place. But what I wanted to share is that we've collected now well over 4,000 surveys. Some are still being entered, but the greatest population group who has completed the surveys are teachers by far. And what we can see just provisionally looking at the data, which has not yet been fully analyzed, is that teachers are feeling significantly impacted. So none of this I know is a surprise to any of you. I want to go back now and talk about resiliency a little bit more. Resiliency is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, or other significant source of stress. Resiliency is the ability to know how to navigate resources and the capacity to bounce back. You, teachers, school administrators, all school personnel are incredibly resilient. It's also important to note that the relationships that are built during difficult times are exceptionally resilient and even continue when a new normal begins, perhaps as we're maybe experiencing this year. But these relationships may even help us to more effectively rise to the occasion when the next crisis comes, or might help us to more effectively keep on keeping on as you go through the school year this year amidst the challenges. So what does resiliency look like? This may be your classroom, what does a resilient team look like? This may be your classroom, it might be your teaching staff or another team. A resilient team can respond to crisis in ways that strengthen the team or the community bonds, strengthen the resources that are available to and within that team, and strengthen that capacity of that team to cope. Team resilience is the individual and the collective capacity to respond to adversity and change. I've been asked before, what are the main ingredients then that allow us as individuals, as a team, or even as a community to bounce back from disaster, tragedy, or trauma. So I've thought a lot about that, and I would identify 5 key ingredients that I've seen consistently among teams as well as community and people that are present when people bounce back. The first is caring and support. The second are high expectations for success. In other words, knowing that we can make it through. So when a team collectively feels that high expectation for success based on history or whatnot, that's an ingredient. The third are opportunities for meaningful participation. People need to feel like they have an opportunity to meaningfully participate in whatever is taking place. The fourth, positive bonds. Those are those relationships that I spoke to that are built during especially hard times. And the last is the ability to adapt. You are so resilient. And this is especially good because, as you know, you need to tap into this now more than ever with children back on campus, with the new challenges that you're experiencing as a result. Working again with those little lives that are setting foot on a school campus for the first time ever due to remote learning. But please don't forget that even resilient people can still get tired. And I know many of you, if not all of you, are feeling that way right now. Not just tired, but truly worn out from the daily vigilance to practice safety guidelines, that daily vigilance to have those guidelines be practiced in your classrooms, and the extra work that it takes to find new ways to live life in the situation we're in now. At the end of the day, I think most people want to close their days feeling inspired, fueled by a day of engagement and purposeful work or activities. And I'm sure this played a key role in why all of you even chose to go into the education field or become teachers. While working hard to remain positively engaged in purposeful work is for the most preferred over monotonous or boring work, it can also be a true recipe for burnout. So in closing, a reminder to all of us, but especially all of you that we need so badly in the education world: take breaks, carve out time for self-care and re-energizing, get outdoors, move your bodies, live in the moment rather than trying to figure out and worry about what's happening next. Thank you all so much for being our community heroes. Thank you for the work that you do and for the many, many lives that you've impacted. Enjoy the summit today.